Coming up on One Detroit, spend the day with one of the most talked about members of Congress, Rashida Tlaib.
Coming home every single week grounds me.
Fighting for her district while being thrust into the national narrative, the balance of both while trying to get things done in Washington. Also coming up, head to college with 3 Detroit high school graduates. It's the beginning of a year-long journey. We'll kick off our collaboration with Chalkbeat Detroit. Plus Stephen Henderson and Nolan Finley on the budget game of chicken in Lansing. It's the anniversary of One Detroit. Join us at Ottava Via in Corktown. One Detroit is coming up.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV. The Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Also brought to you by Ally, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi there, and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. We are at Ottava Via in Corktown. A lot coming up on this show that marks our One Detroit anniversary. Just ahead, we'll catch up with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson, and we'll hash out what's happening with the budget in Lansing, the possibility of a shutdown, and fixing the roads. Plus, the first year of college is a big transition for many kids, and it can be difficult. For the next year, we're going to follow 3 graduates from Detroit high schools. You'll meet them coming up. But we're going to start the show by spending the day with Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Whether you like her politics or you don't, she's become a national figure as a freshman in Congress and representative of the 13th District. She's tangled with everyone from President Trump to Bill Maher. She's an activist and has been since she grew up in Southwest Detroit, became a lawyer, and then a state rep. I caught up with her as she presided over a congressional hearing in Southwest Detroit, focusing on clean air and water in the 48217 zip code. She talked about why she fights for what she does, how she balances the national attention with her constituents' biggest concerns, and who her real squad is.
So this is our opportunity to do that, to bring you to the table.
From a hearing in a Southwest Detroit gym about air and water quality, to a UAW picket line in Romulus,
How's it going?
to listening to each story and some advice.
You all start with values and what's right, and then you can move to strategy. Coming home every single week grounds me. It reminds me of why I even ran in the first place. In the district, common theme is don't sell us out.
Well, I would love to work with you when you do get there.
This is who Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is to her constituents in the 13th Congressional District, which stretches from Detroit to downriver. A freshman representative who has arguably become one of the more well-known voices in Congress, finds herself having to explain inside the Beltway what drives her passion.
From when we were at your victory party back in November, could you have imagined how this was going to go 8 months now into the job? Is this what you thought it would be?
No, it's so much more different than that. I think my residents are the same. Their issues are the same. My passion is the same. But it's still surreal to me every time I walk onto the United States, House floor. You know, my father only had 4th grade education, my mother 8th grade education, and here I am, the first in the family to graduate from high school and college, but I'm there. And not only that, I mean, I think so many people see the national, like, I guess, narrative about me, but it's what's lacking, I think, is I'm so much more just a Muslim and a Palestinian woman, but I'm also this girl that grew up in Southwest Detroit that's got a little grit, you know, and a little fight in her.
Is it hard to have that dual narrative of what maybe Washington, D.C. or national media perception is of you versus what the perception is of you at home and people who know Rashida Tlaib? Has that worked in your favor, or has that negatively impacted what you've been able to do or attention to bring to the 13th?
Yeah, I mean, the 4 neighborhood services I created within, 6 months of me being in office has really been kind of the heart and soul of my public service. The American story that you haven't heard is my district is the 3rd poorest congressional district in the country. And they elected me because I was different, not because of my background.
Did you think you have changed the conversation about women in power, especially given the women and the attention that you've received in Congress and the squad label of you and some of your other freshman colleagues? Are you tired of that label yet, or is it okay to still keep pushing forward with that?
Well, personally, my original squad is the 13th district. And I tell them all the time, I said, this is my squad. And the squad is so much bigger than just us 4. But what I love about us 4 is we all, many of us didn't really know each other until we got there, but it was our shared values. And organically, everybody on the outside did it. It's anybody that believes in equitable justice. It's anybody that believes that people have to breathe clean air. Then you're part of the squad. That you're part of people that want to serve in Congress unapologetically, fighting for issues that I feel like has been not as at the forefront as it should be.
Were you happy with the turnout today?
Oh, it's excellent.
Because
yeah.
I feel like you see some of the same usual people who are advocating for
No,
for
I
clean
saw
air and water.
a ton of new folks. It was great, yeah.
Some people told me this was the first time that
they've got, well, so we intentionally sent out a little postcard to let people know. I really want to change people's interaction with Congress. I feel like they wait until, they're voting on something that, I'm like, no, be at the beginning of us shaping the policy.
Be part of it.
Yeah, show them how government is supposed to be an extension of them. They're supposed to be about people. We got to move. How many times do we need to study the fact that we're dying? We don't need that anymore.
What are some of the conversations that you have with people?
No, I get a commonality is water is a human right. You make sure you say that, Rashida, because I have a right to drink clean water. They're living this experience now, and they just want to feel heard and believed.
How do you tell them then to trust government when a lot of people have absolutely no faith that you guys can't agree on anything in Washington or get anything done?
Yeah, and I'm one of them, even though I'm there. I always remind my residents that transformative change on civil rights, transformative change even on getting women access to vote, didn't happen in the halls of Congress or in the White House. It happened because of the consciousness in the streets, the movement work in the streets.
Where's the common ground then? Because you can have all of these stances and ideas and even push through certain policies, but if you don't get agreement on the other side, if you don't have any Republican buy-in, where do we end up?
Yeah, we have to continue putting forward what the system and how broken it is, right? That's the one thing that came during committee. You'll hear some of my colleagues on the other side say, yeah, it is broken. I said, well, let's fix it together. Because there are immigrants right now, literally my immigrant neighbors who are married to US citizens, for years have been here, and they can't adjust their status here. Or the dreamers. A wall's not gonna do it. And that's the one thing that they agree, at least. They're like, nope, we know the wall's fake, but they won't publicly say it. The political courage that's lacking when it comes to the immigration issue is very prevalent.
And have you paid attention to the president's comments?
No, while he tweets, I work, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, thank you.
We've danced around the name, but we haven't quite said it yet, President Trump. It was no surprise you came out vehemently for impeachment.
I ran on it.
And then you ran on it.
Yeah.
Because in 2016, when he gave his speech to the Econ Club, you were one of the people who stood up and disrupted it.
You guys are crazy!
You're an animal!
Have you had anyone come from your party and say, look, it's an election year, we need to tone down impeachment? Or what kind of conversations have you had, and where are you with us?
Yeah, no, what's incredible is that this past election, if you look at the numbers, it was high. I had a 60% increase in my district of turnout in a non-presidential election year. It was a calling to say, we're electing the jury that will hold this administration accountable.
And you can see more of my interview with Rashida Tlaib at DetroitPBS.org. All right, joining me now are One Detroit contributors Stephen Henderson and Nolan Finley. You know, Congresswoman Tlaib's ever-evolving role in Washington is interesting, especially when you understand where she's coming from. And that's when you guys talk about civility, is understanding where people come from and what their passions are, which lead them to make the decisions that they're making. What do you make of her first 8 months, Stephen?
Well, I mean, she couldn't be more popular in the sense of attention, media attention, than she is. I mean, she and some of the other new members have gotten lots of press for the things that they've said, this paddle they have with the president, and that's good for her. It helps her raise money. It has given her opportunity to speak on platforms that she wouldn't have had access to before. My worry with her, if I have one, is how she's adjusting to this environment in Washington that really requires you to build relationships with members of the administration now that there are no more earmarks. You have cabinet secretaries and their staffs who are deciding a lot of things about grant money, about support for people's districts back home. I don't know that she's building those the way that she should. And you also got to build relationships inside Congress to get stuff done in Congress. And there's a tension there, right? She is saying this needs to change, and I want to be an outsider, but the people in her district need things that other members of Congress can help her get. So she's going to have to figure that out.
How do you balance that a little bit, Nolan?
Well, I don't know if she's doing a good job of balancing it at all. As Steve said, you know, she's gaining a lot of attention for herself. Donald Trump made her untouchable by attacking her and the other three members of her squad. But you can bet once Donald Trump is gone, Nancy Pelosi is going to get even, because she put Nancy Pelosi in a bad spot, her and the other three coming into this. She's not going to forget that. It's not that she hasn't built relationships with her other congresspeople. She's not built relationships with the Democratic leadership that she's going to need to deliver things on behalf of her district. It seems at this point to be all about her and not about what it's going to take to deliver.
She would
for
argue
her
that it's the attention on her, then she can put back to what she's doing here.
Only if she can get things done in Congress. That's what her job is.
All right, let's talk about the work that's going on, or maybe not going on, in Lansing right now. We are hurtling toward an October 1st deadline. Nolan, what is going on with the budget and road funding and lack thereof?
Well, they've taken road funding out of the budget negotiations, which is something I was opposed to because I don't think it'll ever get done now. They'll end up punting it to the ballot. They'll try to put some sort of ballot measure on in 2020. And whether they actually get the rest of the budget done by that October 1st deadline, I think is a big question mark. I think they broke away from this idea that we're going to work together for a deal too soon and started squabbling publicly with each other and pointing fingers at each other. It's too soon for that. I mean, there's still time to get a budget deal done and to try to start blowing it up this far out and sending out notices to state employees and getting them all worked out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, meanwhile, you've got thousands of employees that they're getting ready for a potential layoff.
Well, I mean,
shutdown.
what are we, two and a half weeks from that possibility?
It's a lot of time.
It seems like there's room to get something done, but they're so far apart still on some pretty fundamental things. And honestly, Republicans, in my view, have very little incentive to help the governor out here. They will blame this on her, and that may work. That may be effective going into the
blame a
next
shutdown on
blame
her,
a shutdown on her.
And blame the fact that everything that she had campaigned on and fix the damn roads, that she couldn't get it done.
Taking roads away from her is a huge political win for them, and it spares them the agony of having to go to voters next year and say, hey, I voted for tax increases.
You can't ignore the fact that Christine Gregg, the Democratic leader in the House, would not go along with her
said it was
funding
dead,
plan.
yeah.
She wanted no part of this fuel tax. She wanted a graduated income tax instead, and you're not going to get that done by October 1st.
Yeah, but meanwhile, you have the entire state of Michigan who's like, are we going to wait now until 2020? We're back to where
we were, a decade ago on this, and I don't think people are going to take it very well. But there's no reason for us to be in this.
But who are they going to take it out on is always the question.
Oh, that is there. There you go.
You don't know that.
I don't know.
And that's why you got all this finger pointing going on, but she didn't have the votes for a road deal either in her own caucus. But there was an opportunity, and I think there still is, to get an incremental road funding deal done.
All right, well, you guys stay put here. We're going to turn to heading to college. Thousands of kids in Michigan are making this next transition. It's not really an easy one, though. That first year, adjusting to classes, a new living environment, peers, it's critical. What does it take to be successful? Well, we're going to find out. For the next year, in partnership with Chalkbeat Detroit, we're going to follow a group of Detroit high school graduates during their first year of college. They come from a number of different schools, and they're going to let us, along with Chalkbeat Detroit Bureau Chief Lori Higgins, document their journey.
I'm Lori Higgins, Bureau Chief for Chalkbeat Detroit, part of a national nonprofit news organization committed to covering education issues. In a joint project with Detroit Public Television, I'm following a group of Detroit high school graduates through their first year of college. Markel and Joe from Cody High School, and Demetrius from the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy. It's the day before move-in. Markel hasn't packed yet. Until now, she has performed well at the last minute, but she knows she can't continue this way through college.
I always had 4.0s, and I did almost everything like the night before, the day of, the class before. But I don't think I can do that in college. So that's something that I have to fix too.
Markel has always been a star student, valedictorian of her graduating class. So it's surprising that she must take a remedial class during her first year.
I actually had to take a placement test for MSU, and I kind of have to start off taking remedial math classes. I just don't want to be unprepared, like make myself think that everything will be easy, and then once I get up there and everything like turns out to be hard, I end up quitting. Because that's one thing that I don't want to do. I do want to stay in school no matter how hard it gets. It's bigger than I thought. It looks nice. I haven't really had the opportunity to feel any of the emotions yet. I might start crying again when my family leaves, but right now I'm okay. Because I'm not used to being without them. So I think today I'll be fine, but once I start realizing that I'm living on my own, it might be emotional again.
The 8 most important years of development in a young person's life is the 4 that you're in high school and the 4 that you could be in college.
Jalen Rose is the co-founder of Detroit's Jalen Rose Leadership Academy.
That's when you really start to become a young adult. You get exposed to sex, drugs, violence. There's a gang culture, there's social media. There's so many things that overwhelms the mind of young people. And so if you can decompress and find a way to be successful in that 8 years and dominate that 8 years, then it puts you on a trajectory to achieve your goals.
I want that 4.0. That's my goal. Ace everything.
This is Demetrius. We caught up with him during orientation.
I have to get used to and accustomed to dealing with people from all different aspects of life, all different races and, different backgrounds and interests. Well, school was never an issue for me. I've always been able to just study, do the work, and perform well. So I've never really struggled with school, so I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't want to settle for no C, no D, definitely not an F.
I didn't really think too hard about college because I didn't know nobody that went for real,
It's move-in day for Joe and his teammates. Many families have come to help their athletes get settled. Joe handles it on his own.
I just knew it was going to be something with that financial aid.
What did they say? You got to set up a payment plan, that's it.
Oh, that's it? I didn't know how to do it. The pressure is going in blind because I don't really know exactly what to do because there's not too many people around me that been to college. I'm just going with the flow of everything. But it's difficult at times, but I tend to try and manage. My oldest 5 brothers, they all played football in high school, and they was all pretty good, but further down the line, they all started fall short into the fast money and into the street life, and then further down, they started going into jail. I feel like God really blessed me because the way I handle my situations. Like most people would probably try to let it bring them down and try to use it as a reason for why they do what they do. That's what I try not to do, if that makes sense. Like they try to use it as a reason for why they go rob somebody, why they go take what somebody else earned. That should make you stronger, if anything. That's what I feel like it did to me.
Jalen overcame many of the obstacles Markel, Demetrius, and Joe will face this year.
When you go to a college campus, you're staying in a dorm, you're trying to manage your own time, you're meeting people from all over the world, and you still have to be a class. And then you still have to be a practice. And then you got to do it all over again, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So now all of a sudden, that level of dedication and sacrifice are things that become learned behaviors. You got to put that phone down. You can't be on social media all day. You got to manage your time. You can't be out at every party. You can't go out every night. You can't go home when you have a bad day, because this is a commitment and it's going to be turbulence along the way, but you got to find a way to fight through it.
How will our students fight through their first year of college? For the next year, we'll document their obstacles and successes.
Well, and Lori Higgins is joining me now. I really love this story. How did you come up with the idea to actually follow a group of kids through their first year of college?
So it's actually something I've been wanting to do for a long time. My own experience was similar to what a lot of students right now experience. And I know that a lot of students graduate from high school, they go on to college, and they don't really know what they don't know. They don't know the opportunities that they've been lacking for so many years. They don't understand the academic challenges that they're going to face. They don't understand the social challenges they're going to face. And so I wanted to take a look at that, because a lot of schools have really high graduation rates and they send a lot of kids to college. But a lot of those kids aren't actually getting past the first year. And if they get past the first year, they're struggling to get toward that ultimate goal, which is graduation.
So it's kind of like, what happens next? What are some of the challenges that you think that these kids are going to face?
Well, a lot of kids, you think about students coming out of Detroit, which is, I cover Detroit schools. So for the school district itself, nearly half of the students will end up taking a remedial class once they get to college. So it means that their academic preparation is lacking in some way.
So they're already on catch up a little bit.
They're already playing catch up. And for charter schools, it's pretty similar. It ranges from like 32% to way up to 75% of the kids at a couple of charter schools are having to take remedial classes. So that's a really big challenge, because a lot of kids will get to college and they find that when you have to take a remedial class, you're not getting credit toward graduation for that. And so they get discouraged, and if there are other issues, it just sort of compounds things for them.
What about social, financial? Some of these big pitfalls in this first year is really a huge transition.
Right, socially. So I was really interested in the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, where we spent a little bit of time this spring. They really take the kids through like the kinds of social challenges they're going to face. And one of the big things they talk to them about is this phenomenon called the imposter phenomenon, where these kids come out of underserved communities and they go to college and they don't feel like they belong. They're sitting next to a kid from a high-performing suburban district who's got stellar test scores, and they're wondering like, how do I fit in here? Like I don't belong. Like this isn't for me. And for a lot of kids, that will kind of trip them up. If you understand that, maybe you've just lacked the opportunities. There are a lot of really bright kids coming out of the city going to college, but they may not have had the proper preparation. They may not have had the kinds of opportunities that kids in these other school districts have had.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this playing out in the next year and really investing ourselves in these kids' success and seeing how they go about it. I think probably for you, it's going to be hard to not want to jump in and say, you might want to do this or you might want to do this, but be that observer for them.
Absolutely.
And look for our continuing coverage as we follow Joe, Demetrius, Markel, and others through their first year of college. It really is a pivotal time, and it's not easy for kids to get through, especially if they come in and they feel that they weren't prepared to begin with.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Detroit, you have a couple of things. You have the academic challenges that kids face, but you also have the environment on these college campuses, which is really different from where these kids come from, and they face all kinds of social and cultural challenges that colleges are often unprepared to help them meet, and that ends up being just as big a deal as getting a good grade in the class.
And we talk about how important it is to go to college, but then it's following who stays in college, who's able to graduate.
And that's it. We put a lot of emphasis on getting kids to go to college, but the washout rate in that first year is extraordinarily high. And so are we doing enough to prepare them to succeed in college? I think the answer to that's clearly no.
Yeah, we're going to follow it along. Find us at DetroitPBS.org. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you join us next week for a special show on workforce development in the state. Thanks to Ottava Villa for having us. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV. The Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
Business Leaders for Michigan has 5 priorities to make Michigan a top 10 state. Achieve a balanced budget, cut long-term debt, fix our roads, improve all levels of education, further economic growth, plan for a stronger Michigan. How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Also brought to you by Ally, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.